Welcome to Building Emotional Intelligence, and today we're talking to Chantelle, and she's going to tell us about her journey dealing with a government department and specific issues, challenges she faced along the way, and how she changed those in a rather inspiring way. So I'll hand over to Chantelle, and she'll give us the overview of where she got to in terms of that relationship and where it ended up. Okay, Chantelle, welcome, and over to you.
Okay. Hi. Thank you. Hi, I'm Chantelle, and recently I had a few challenges with a government department, and I found I was being triggered because I was feeling that I wasn't being heard and I wasn't being understood about where I was coming from to advocate for children that are currently in my care. And I got to a point where every time they called, I would just be triggered. I'd be on edge. I'd be highly anxious. And I knew that through that, there was a certain part that I needed to look at within myself and address within myself. And so I decided to go and, I was going to do a workshop anyway, a self-development workshop. So I chose to go and take part in that. And through that, I did a couple of personal breakthroughs, and that involved clearing all the major negative emotions. And it was, what I found afterwards is that I had more clarity in my thinking, and I was able to then look at the situation from a very different angle. And so I'd had this meeting that I was meant to have with the department 3 or 4 months prior, and I couldn't attend that meeting because of my emotions getting in the way, and my limiting thought patterns were getting in the way of me being able to approach that in a way that I needed to. So I'd taken a back step and allowed our agency to act on my behalf so that I could then work on myself. So after working on myself, we arranged a meeting with the department. And when I went into that meeting, I was a little bit nervous, and I went armed with my metaphors that I'd written, just in case I needed to draw on those. And I was sitting there, and I had my laptop. I had these metaphors already. And when the department walked in, there was 2 representatives from the department. There was also a representative from Relationships Australia who was there to act as a mediator. In the end, she didn't really have to say anything because what I did is I looked at that person, and for the first time, I actually noticed his humanness. And I saw him from a very, very different angle. And through that, I just, I trusted my intuition with this, and I just thought about actually, I had looked at all through doing the Building Emotional Intelligence, Herbert, and also through going and looking at the nonviolent communication online and everything. I'd learned a lot about that as well. And so I started that meeting with gratitude, and I thanked, I knew the supervisor was extremely busy in his role, and I thanked him for his time and for being patient while I took time out with the family and everything like that, and to work on myself. And one thing that we did through NLP as well is the person with the most flexibility of behavior controls the system. And that was going through my mind all the way to that meeting. And I thought, okay, I need to have behavioral flexibility. I need to meet him where he's at. And I knew that he wasn't a person that was in touch with his own emotions. So I knew that, you know, being emotional wasn't going to help anybody in that meeting. So I said to myself, okay, you need to remain objective here. Regardless of how you feel about the situation or what you think about it, you need to remain objective. And the other thing that was in my mind is be the change you want to see. And so when I started with gratitude, that you could see he was blown away. He was absolutely blown away. And because I set the tone for that meeting, you know, I had a room full of professionals there, and yet I set the tone for that meeting, and it could have gone so many different ways. And yeah, and so I started off with that. I started off with openness and honesty. And because I did that, even though it was hard for him to do, he then was open and honest. You know, and that meeting went so well. Like, it went so well. We had an outcome that worked for everyone. And what I also what was also going through my mind was for the well and good of all. This has to be for the well and good of all. And for the first time, I actually felt like peace in my heart. And it was the most amazing feeling. And I just had so much gratitude, like so much gratitude. And I went home, and I just, you know, I just felt blown away. I felt blown away by everything. And what I did is I sent a gratitude to him as well in an email, like a sincere gratitude. I also sent a sincere gratitude to the Relationships Australia person, to our agency for their part in that, their support and everything, and to the social worker that was there as well. And, you know, the social worker found it really hard in the meeting. She was still holding on to stuff. She was still taking it very personally. And when I sent her this, you know, this email, she actually came back to me and she apologized for her behavior in that meeting and said she had regrets. So it was a beautiful outcome, you know. And yeah, I just never experienced that level of peace before, and it was just really lovely.
That's an amazing story, really, truly amazing. I've told a number of people I know about it, and they've all been blown away how you've been able to turn the situation around in such dramatic fashion and clearly had such an amazing impact on everybody around you. I guess that sets you up for future interactions with the department in a very good space, not only in terms of where they're at, but in terms of how you see yourself in that situation and how to operate in that situation.
Oh, absolutely. It gives you so many different, you know, all these things that you learn. And as I've said before, self-development to me is a lifelong journey. And each, you know, once you start and you just keep removing layer by layer by layer, and you build your sense of self each time, and then you're able to, and the skills that you gain along the way, you're able to utilize those skills in all these situations where maybe, you know, once before that you weren't able to. Yeah. And you notice that, you know, well, what I've noticed personally is that some of these situations that I used to be triggered with, I'm just not triggered anymore. Like, it just doesn't bother me, you know? Yeah. So the growth, you know, it's when you keep persevering and you keep doing it and commit to it, you know, on a daily basis, even if it's, you know, 10 minutes each day, you know, you start to notice, you may not notice too much at the start, but further through your journey, you start looking back and you go, oh, wow, that actually, I used to handle that very differently to what I do now, you know?
And it generates its own momentum, I find. People usually find if they can have that sort of outcome, do things differently to how they've done it in the past, it's a real motivator to continue doing it. But you have to get over that first step of doing it and seeing a really great outcome. Wondering if you could go back and describe to some extent what it was like before you did the practices that changed your approach to the situation. What were the meetings like? What was happening for you in those meetings?
Oh, I would be, you know, a lot of the time, because in this role, it can feel like you are being judged a lot because you've got a lot of explaining to do on a regular basis. And so, you know, sometimes I would go into a meeting and I probably wouldn't be as open because I'd be worried about, you know, how it might be perceived or, you know, what the implications of that would be if I was open, because I go in to advocate. Like I've always been a really strong advocator for the children and their needs, and I've always, with anything I've done, I've put my heart and soul into it, and I've always gone over and above, because I see possibilities and opportunities there that maybe others may not. And so I'm always looking at the different avenues and seeing things from a different perspective as far as other ways we can help the children to be more to be able to go out into society and actually function, you know, especially when they get to those the teenage years and things like that. So I'm always advocating, but I always put in, you know, I always like to meet halfway, or, you know, whereas in this particular situation, I wasn't being met halfway from my model of the world. And I was going, gee, I'm doing all of this stuff. Can you not see? Can you seriously not see what I'm doing here? Or appreciate, you know, the lengths I'm going to for these kids and, you know, help me out. You know, that was my rationale. And I would go in with and what this has taught me actually, now that I look back and I reflect on this situation, this person, I always believe that people come into your life to teach you something, and I look at every single person as a mirror. So whatever they're mirroring is what I need to work on, you know. And so I knew that, you know, a sales perspective doesn't work with this person. I needed to find another way. And I was doing tasking so much every day to try and get to the root cause of what my trigger was, and two, what do I need to do? How can I approach this differently? I kept saying to myself, how can I approach this differently to get the outcome for the well and good of all?
Right. And what did you discover in terms of your triggers?
The trigger was probably, it was more about my self-worth and my value as a person and not being heard.
Very common
those
triggers.
Those were three massive ones that came to my awareness. Yeah.
And you developed an awareness of it.
And I think and from what I've learned from, oh, absolutely. And the fear, there was a lot of fear there. Fear around, you know, because we needed funding and things, fear around, and I've always seen money as a security. So for the kids, and so therefore it created some insecurities around that. So yeah, so I'm still working on at the moment, I'll be very honest, I'm still working on developing a good relationship with money so that I'm not triggered by those things going forward in the future. So yeah.
Chantelle, you were talking about various triggers that you experienced that were getting in the way of your interaction. Can you describe how you managed to expose those and to actually address them so that they're resolved and they don't come up and get in the way anymore?
I think the personal breakthrough was definitely the biggest one. Removing those major negative emotions with the processes this time, and just having someone guide me through that was really good. Doing the masters in NLP really helped, because it just changed the language. Being around people who speak the same language, and really what I found with that, we went away for a whole week, so we were away from our everyday environment, and during that time you start noticing, because I've got the space and the time to myself and I haven't got other commitments around me for that week, it really started noticing of thinking. It became so much more prominent, I guess. And just things like, oh gosh, I'm just trying to think of one now, because I cleared a lot of them. So we did like a lot of processes of clearing limiting beliefs as well, and limiting decisions that I've obviously, had made along the way. So yeah, it's a process of timeline therapy, basically. And then we did another process of parts integration, which is, allowing yourself to, it kind of resolves inner conflicts and allows you to come back to who you are. And that was very interesting, because there was some stuff that I cleared through there that was absolutely massive, and that was to do with when I was growing up as a child, and that was stuff I was carrying from my parents, nothing to do with me. So once I cleared, that was a massive clearing, and then coming home, I had the opportunity actually given to me to work with a lady who wasn't able to do hers during that week. And so I did another personal breakthrough. So I did one with her and she did one with me. And so that was absolutely brilliant, because what that then did, one of the things that were coming up in my own environment as well, back at home. So that worked extremely well. Just once I cleared them, just as I said before, I just had so much more clarity of thought.
Yeah. And the beauty in these situations is that once you learn a process, being an internal process, it's hard to really describe it externally. You can support somebody through it, but it's all to do with connecting with internal processes, internal feelings. Once you've gone through that, you can go, that's what it's like. And I imagine now you can do that on an ongoing basis when a trigger comes up for you.
Yeah, definitely. I can use that, but I also find I love writing. So I do write a lot, and what I find is even simple things like writing poetry, when I'm feeling triggered, allows me to remain objective. And so I can write what the issue is, but by the time I get to the end of that poem, I'm actually in a very different space, because I've actually remained objective and I've actually worked it out for myself. So, each person's different. Some people, and as you know, like we all have different learning styles. So some people are more, visual. They can sit there. I mean, I do meditation every morning as well. And I've even written some of my own meditations, and I've been writing metaphors and things. And I'd actually like to get out there and do a bit of motivational speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with a story like yours, it's a really great start to do that. Yeah. So you can see ongoing involvement and helping with other people, helping them sort out these challenges in their lives. I guess that's your vision. It's also your vision to continue advocating for the kids as well, and you'll be much more effective now in the future. So is there anything else that you would like to share about your journey?
I guess with all the self-development I have done, I can now, where I felt probably stuck before and I couldn't see, like, you know, when you're doing a caring role, it does take up a lot of time, and it takes commitment. And sometimes, I don't know, I used to feel a little bit stuck and not see because there's all these things I'd like to achieve and do, and I'd be thinking, oh, I'm just stuck here. I can't do anything because of the role that I'm playing. But something that our trainer always said in our training was, you can have both. You can actually have both. You've just got to look at it in a different way. And so at the end of, doing these breakthroughs and things, I realised, yes, actually I can achieve these goals and I can still do what I'm doing. I just need to come at it from a different angle and actually be a little bit more creative in the way that I'm looking at it. So, I mean, I can, if I want to, I can take on clients and do the NLP. And in fact, it would probably be great because I do have the flexibility, so.
Okay. Yeah. And certainly I enjoyed your point about how it's very much an individual journey. There's certainly common factors, but how you deal with it, like in your case, doing the poetry, seems to have a big impact for you. It works well for you. Probably doesn't work for some other people. It's horses for courses. Everybody seems to respond to something different, but it's that awareness, that ability to be aware of something, what's going on for you, and a desire to be curious and to learn about it, that's really important.
Yeah. And I think that, you're just saying curious, I was thinking that too, because quite often the way that we are conditioned by society is to think that emotions are bad, and that when something comes up, oh, it's a big bad thing, when in actual fact, it's really just an awareness, and it's just about us learning to listen to our bodies and listen to ourselves, and then work through that and actually know that it's okay. It's okay to feel. Because the more we get in touch with ourselves, the less we're triggered by things. And also, the more that you push things away, the more it creates illness in the body anyway. So it's about, becoming in touch with who you are and working at your own pace. I've found, everybody is at a different pace in their life. And then also finding acceptance for where you're at as a person and being okay with that.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah. Lovely point to end up on. I like your clarity and your understanding. And thank you so much for coming and sharing.
You're welcome.
What you've been through and the progress you make. I really congratulate you on the amazing shift you've been able to create. It's such a wonderful story. Okay, thank you, Chantelle.
Yes, and more going forward.
Yeah, once you start.
All right. Exactly.